Hello, everybody. My name is Chef Scott Sanfilippo, and I would like to welcome you to Healthy Cooking Class number 1. In this class, I would like to discuss a variety of different things surrounding healthy foods, healthy eating, healthy food purchases, and healthy cooking, of course. One of the things I'd like to start with, first of all, is to discuss healthy cooking. What is healthy cooking? Does that mean deep fat frying? Yes, it does. Does that mean frying in butter in a pan? Yes, it does. No, it doesn't. Actually, those are all the good things that we love, but no. It's mostly healthy cooking means to reduce the amount of fat that you have in your food plan, and also the amount of sugar that you're taking in as well. I think those two things are pretty good place to start when it comes to choosing some healthier food choices. I don't like to eliminate anything from my diet, but I do like to try to control and balance the amount of things that I do take in. When it comes to cooking techniques, yes, deep fat frying is no good, and pan frying is no good either. Of course, they are great. We love them, but as far as healthy cooking, it's not the best way to go. Once in a while, of course, yes, right? Once in a while, we can have that, of course. But I think mostly we're talking about some dry cooking methods like roasting, baking in the oven at a high temperature is a good way to go, because if you can get your oven to roast about 400 to 425 degrees and nice roasting temperatures, you can really get good caramelization and good color on your products that are in the oven, and it's still going to hold all the nutrients for you as well, and not it won't be introducing too much fat to whatever it is you're cooking. So baking and roasting is very good. We also like steaming, of course. Boiling is also a good way to go with your vegetables and things like that. Poaching, blanching, those are all good ideas. Of course, in the summertime, we like to grill, so grilling is a great way to go. And, it's good to, of course, you need a little bit of oil when you're I like to sear things first in the pan, if I'm doing a piece of salmon, or if I'm doing a piece of chicken, a boneless, skinless chicken breast, a pork chop, something like that. I do like to start them in a pan on top of the stove for a short while on high heat with a very little bit amount of oil in the pan, just to sear it on one side, start the cooking process. And then I also would like to turn it over and sear it on the other side. And oftentimes I will put that into the oven, the whole pan. I have type of baking pans and saute pans that I'm able to put directly into the oven. You don't have to put your pans in the oven. You can take your salmon out of your searing pan and then put it into a baking pan or something and put that into the oven, and that would be just fine as well. I'm going to go over some of these things too. We're going to actually do some of these techniques that we're talking about. I'm not really sure how everybody cooks at home already. I've been trained to cook a certain way, and I'm going to show you a little bit about what I know about that. Blanching is good for vegetables. Blanching for us means you have boiling salted water and you have your vegetables all cut the way you like them already, and then you do quick, just put them in the water for a quick while. And what this does is it brings out the green or the chlorophyll, it brings out the colors and the flavors of your vegetables that you're cooking. And then you cook them for a short while, they don't get totally soggy and things like that. You're cooking them for about 3 minutes. And this is a good way to retain a lot of the nutrients too. You don't lose a lot of the nutrients into the water. Some things when you cook, you lose a lot of the nutrients in the water. That's why people like to eat lots of vegetables fresh. There was a raw movement for a short while where people were eating vegetables, nothing but raw. And yes, that's the best way to get the complete amount of nutrients from them. But also, when you cook them a little bit, you're not going to lose all of the good stuff that you need. So let's see. Roasting, baking, sauteing to saute means to have a pan on, like a frying pan on top of the stove. You get that pan nice and hot, and then you put a little bit of oil, just enough to coat the bottom, and you get that hot. And that's when you then put your product on to sear, salmon, pork chop, things like that, even vegetables. If you have all of your vegetables cut up and your pan is hot, you put in a little bit of oil, your oil is hot, and you throw in your vegetables, you can quickly saute that. And the term saute is a dancing term. It means to jump. And what is happening actually is the oil is so hot that the vegetables and the things are jumping on top of the oil. They're not really touching the pan as much. I mean, they are, but they're not. Technically, it's like, it means to just cook with high heat very quickly, and then it's done. So sauteing is a good way to go with this limited amount of fat. Some people like to cook with olive oils. Let's see, I just went to this grocery store and bought some olive oil that I thought was pretty decent that everyone can get. Not bad. If you cook, olive oil is interesting. Different oils have different smoke temperatures, different burning points. Olive oil has a low smoke point. So if you try to saute with olive oil, all that nice olive oil, the flavor that you're smelling that's coming out of the olive oil while it's in the pan is the flavor of the olive oil dissipating. And it's not good to saute with because it'll burn before you get it hot enough to saute. So what we like to do is we saute with a vegetable oil, a peanut oil, something with a high a smoke point, a canola oil, vegetable oils, peanut oils, things like that can take higher heat. And you can get those. I use canola oil at home. It's just a nice regular medium oil just to cook with it. And I will saute my vegetables in the pan with hot oil, put them in, toss, saute them and put them in the pan or in a bowl or something, and then drizzle a little bit of the olive oil on top after the cooking or at the end of your cooking process to get the flavor of the olive oil into whatever it is that you're cooking. This is an extra virgin olive oil, and what that means is it refers to the first pressing of the olives. It's a cold press, a first pressing of the olives. That's going to give you the richest, deepest, greenest olive flavor, and then the richest oil as well, really bold and nice. I think this is actually a bold, yes, drizzling oil. So meant to be drizzled as a flavor, I guess, at the end, which is pretty nice. Canola oil or vegetable oil, I just use regular stuff that I buy at the grocery store, and that works very well for sauteing and making my salad dressings, as a base for the salad dressings and things like that. I would like to do some salad dressings in the class and some marinades and things as well, because that is a great way to add flavor to a lot of things before we cook them without increasing the amount of fat and things like that. When I say fat, I mean, like oil, butter, olive oil, just for cooking purposes, those kinds of things. If you look in the Mayo Clinic or the USDA website, things like that, they like to limit or remove butter or animal fats basically from your diet completely. And like I said, I don't like to limit or remove things from my diet. I believe a well-balanced all-around diet is the best for you. So I would like to limit the amount of butter that I eat, but I love butter, and it's one of those things that I don't like to give up. In moderation, I think it's just great. You can use canola, or you can use your margarines and spreads and things like that, but you're getting into the question of natural versus processed, and that's a completely different sort of discussion that I like to dabble in a little bit later on. We're talking about what are good fats and what are bad fats. Like olive oil is a good fat because it helps to assimilate into the body well, and the body can process it well and remove it from the body, where some of the other bad fats, butter for one, and animal fats and things like that, they tend to stay in the body, and they are not removed from the body through the liver. So they tend to stay with us. But the other ones, we're talking about unsaturated fat and saturated fat. I think when it comes to, we like extra virgin olive oil. I mean, that's good fat. We like avocados. That's an example of some good fat. I had some other examples too, but I want to talk about that in a minute. Right now, still just talking about whether or not to use butter, margarine, cooking techniques. We decided deep fat frying, pan frying is delicious, but we don't want to do it. Steaming rice, steaming vegetables, blanching, boiling vegetables is great. Just limiting the amount of fat while we're cooking. What is healthy eating? Healthy eating is, well, I think trying to get a balanced meal, protein, enough protein that you need. And everybody's body is a little bit different. The metabolism is a little bit different, but the protein that we need and the amount of carbohydrates and sugars we all need to have these things in our body. It's just where are we getting them from and what types are they? You know, what type of sugar are we eating? What type of grains are we eating? Is organic healthy? Is organic feasible? Is it are you able to purchase organic? Is it expensive? You know, so I think when it comes to ingredients and a balance, I like to have a little bit of protein on the plate and a lot of vegetables and a lot of starch grains, rice, things like that. When we cook at home, it's very simple. It's a pork chop that I sear and finish in the oven with some steamed vegetables and some rice. And does that sound dull? Yeah, a little bit dull, but I mean, I do like to put a little bit of olive oil or butter on the rice, you know, when it comes out, which is just great. And of course, you're cooking with salt, a little bit of salt. So that salt and butter and rice is really good. With the rice, you can flavor that however you like as well during the cooking process with garlic, onions, herbs, things like that as well. So you can make your rice a little bit more interesting. The doctor will tell you that whole grain is healthy. Whole grain, anything, whole grain breads, whole grain pastas, you know, whole wheat cereals, those kinds of things. When it comes to healthy, whole grain is really the best way to go. Not always the easiest to eat, but you know, whole grain pasta is not very exciting, you know, but you can make it exciting, you know. So I don't like whole grain pastas. I like regular grain pastas, but healthy ones if I can get them. Something that's not made from processed flours, preferably something that is local, things like that. But I know that's difficult with pasta. With pasta, we just buy that at the grocery store, and that's fine. The combination, like proteins, we're talking about you know, meat proteins and soy proteins, wheat proteins like tofus and things, and seafood, a combination of two things together, like complementary proteins, rices and beans, legumes, right? Rices and beans give you a complete protein together. So I have just some regular white grain rice that we have here as an example, and some black beans. We can cook these separately, combine them on the plate, and they'll be a complete protein. You can have them in different meals in the day, and it will still give you a complete protein throughout the course of the day, which is good. We have black beans that I love to, they take a long time to cook, but they're really good. Lentils are a nice bean that cook quickly. Something you can cook when you get home from work, and takes about as long as rice to cook. You know, the little small lentils, they also cook very quickly. That's a good bean to have rice and beans together in a quick way. I use a lot of cannellini beans. I got some of these at the store as well. And I got some organic, well, they don't have to be organic, but I just happen to get organic chickpeas. These are invaluable as well. Chickpeas are great. I use them for cold chickpea salads. Of course, we make hummus and things from them as well, but chickpeas are another one that's quick and easy and really good, full of protein and carbohydrates. And if you can mix the beans with some rice, then you have a complete protein in your diet already. Couscous is something that I'm thinking about, things that are quick, things that we can come home from work and cook in 15-20 minutes and not have to have a big involved meal. Couscous, I bought this at the store. It's a Parmesan couscous mix. And the way you cook, I mean, you can get plain couscous. I just couldn't find it at the grocery store. In town, I think we have some, like at the health food stores, or even like some of the grocery stores. I just couldn't find it. But Couscous is one that you take boiling water and you pour it over the couscous in your bowl or in your pan and let it sit for 5 minutes and it's cooked. Okay, so this is like super quick. And couscous is kind of, if you have never had it, it's like little tiny pastas. It's really nice. It's great with butter and herbs, and if you want to put a little cheese, is really good too. Now, all those things in moderation too, and certain types of cheeses, of course. But we'll talk about that a little bit later, just to spice it up a little bit. This particular one comes with a Parmesan packet mix. So you cook the couscous in about 5 minutes and you mix in your packet mix and it's ready to go. Makes it a little bit more interesting for you. White rice, brown rice is great. Like I was saying, anything that is whole grain is going to be really good for you. I have some quinoa, and this is quinoa that we bought at the grocery store. And this in and of itself is a complete protein. It's interesting stuff. Let's see if I can show it to you. Can you see it? I'm going to try to put it on the other camera for a second. Okay. Can you see? Just little. Couscous is another one that cooks in about, or quinoa is another one that cooks in about the same length as rice. This is something that is boiled like pasta. You cook it like pasta, but it takes about 15 minutes, same length as pasta. And it's another one that has it's a complete protein in and of itself. So it's really good, just quinoa and vegetables. This quinoa makes wonderful cold salads mixed with vinaigrette and some fresh crunchy vegetables, things like that is really good. And anytime that you can make those kinds of things ahead of time and have them ready is always good, right? Because we don't have time usually on our work days to come home and make cold salads and things like that. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. Rice, beans, different types of beans, couscous, quinoa. Also, you can't forget corn, cornmeal. One of the things that I do at home is I'll make a quick creamy polenta, which takes just as long as rice as well. It's just a matter of boiling the water and putting some salt and olive oil in it, and pour in the cornmeal and cover it under low heat and just stir it occasionally while you're cooking your other things, and it is delicious. It's as creamy as nice as mashed potatoes. It's really good. So something quick. Sometimes we often will have pork chop with some of the creamy polenta and some broccoli or asparagus or just whatever it's fresh at the grocery store as far as vegetables go. So when we're talking about healthy cooking, we're basically talking about eating low-fat foods, having a diet high in vegetables, high in fruits, low in sugar. Eastern philosophies, Chinese old philosophies will tell you to limit your dairy and no sugar, no dairy is what they'll say. And that's pretty much an Eastern diet. Lots of fish, lots of rice, lots of vegetables, not a lot of sugar, not a lot of dairy. But that is something that I sort of keep in mind as I'm cooking and as I'm buying, just to keep my dairy intake down and my sugar intake down just a little bit to a comfortable place. I love my sweets and I love my cheeses, but I do, try to eat them in moderation as much as possible. It's not easy. The food pyramid will tell you, at the very top of the pyramid is sweets, and it's the tiniest little thing at the top of the pyramid. I'll show you in your packet. I will send a copy of that. And then the next small one is going to be fats underneath that. And that's all fats, good fats, bad fats. That just means try to limit your fat, especially animal fats and things like that. Underneath the sweets and the fat, then comes your protein and your dairy, and they kind of live together because dairy is also a part of the protein and the animal proteins and things like that. Below that, where they're getting a little bit wider, they want more carbohydrates. And then below that is fruits and vegetables, lots of fruits and vegetables. And by carbohydrates, they're talking, pastas and other rices and things like that. Stuff, you have to be careful with pasta and carbohydrates and sugars because, pasta will convert to sugar in the body. And then to eat a lot of pasta is not healthy because you're eating a lot of sugar, essentially, because the carbohydrates will convert to sugar in your body, and we're trying to limit. So pasta once a week, twice a week, rice once a week. I don't know, maybe you can get pizza once in a while, which is okay. Things like that. The doctor will tell you whole grain foods, I think, are good, but they're not always the best to eat and easiest to find. We like to have lots of nuts and seeds. Wait, I'm going to stop that right there. Okay. What are healthy proteins? Low fats proteins, pork, chicken. Chicken obviously is going to be the most low fat. Pork is not bad. Red meat is something that they say you should avoid having a lot of. I think red meat in moderation is fine too. Pork is good. We eat a lot of pork. We eat a lot of chicken. Bone-in chicken is wonderful. Anything on the bone is going to be great. They recommend that you don't eat the chicken skin, even though that's the crunchy best part, but it's all the good stuff that we have to sort of watch what we're taking in, I guess. Bone-in chicken is great. Boneless, skinless chicken is great because that's also super quick and easy. Bone-in chicken is something that we like to do on the weekend when we make like a crock pot dish or something that's going to last for a few days throughout the course of the week. That comes in with like your meal planning and stuff like that. We do try to plan our meals at home a little bit, but it's not like we have a chart. I'm not good at making a chart. I'm just good at having the ingredients on hand and then making things each night. So we always have some pork, some chicken on hand, and my wife likes tofu. We have some tofu that I got as well. It's made from soy product. A lot of things are made from soy. And that is another one of those products, like soy and corn are another one of those like environmental products that people are a bit concerned about. If you're interested, we could talk about that throughout the course as well. Tofu, I bought the extra firm. I don't know if you can see that. The extra firm tofu is probably for me the easiest to work with. The silken tofu is just really soft. It just breaks apart in your hands. But tofu is one of those things that needs a lot of love when you cook it. It needs to marinate. It needs to have like a nice sauce over it. You can cook it many different ways, and it has texture many different ways that people either like or they dislike. It's one of those things. But ultimately it's good and healthy and is low fat. I mean, if it's something that you need that is a nice substitute for protein, then by all means, it's an excellent one. There's tofu, there's tempeh, there's seitan, all those sort of wheat, gluten, soy products too that you can find at like the health food section of the store. So let's see, proteins. We talked about chicken. I talked a lot about chicken and pork, and beef we talked about a little bit. Beef is, red meat, and it's higher in fats. Yes, it is, but it's also good once in a while. You can grill a steak once in a while. There's nothing wrong with that. You can sear a steak on the stove and finish it in the oven. We do that occasionally. Like I said, it's like steak every day is probably not the best thing, but steak once a week is going to be healthy for you. Other healthy proteins are anything like wild caught. Around here, we have a lot of venison, a lot of fish, things like that. Turkey season's coming up, so anything that is wild caught around here is going to be great for you, just because it's naturally low in fat and has different vitamins that we don't normally get through processed meats and stuff like that. I think as far as protein goes, that's pretty good. We like to have steak once in a while. Chicken, pork, beef, and rice and beans is an excellent source of protein. Quinoa on its own is an excellent source of protein. And there are some of the soy proteins that are available if you're into that kind of thing as well. They recommend, like in the pyramid and most health magazines and things like that, that you have a lot of nuts. Nuts and are just as important as grains. Granola is good. I got a little bit of granola that we make here. I wanted to show you because it's real nice, and I can pass this recipe on. See, it's super good. We make it with pecans and a little bit of maple syrup for the sweetener. One of the things that we use, that I like to use for sweetener, is maple syrup, obviously. I try to stay away from like white processed sugars. Processed sugars through the refining process, they are just very hard on the body. They're difficult for the body to assimilate and to absorb into our body. Sugar naturally takes a long time to assimilate. It's not something that should happen quickly. It's something that we have insulin, and it does its thing, and it slowly assimilates and converts to sugar so we can take it in and use it for energy and not fat. But the processed sugars are harder to, they're harsh on the digestive system. They require more insulin, and they assimilate more quickly into the body. So that means that you're just going straight to fat, that it's not going to convert, to energy without a lot of exercise. So processed sugars I try to stay away from. But healthy sugars are fruit sugar, anything that's, any fruit sugars, any fruit is good for you. They are high in sugar too as well, some people will say, but it's good, healthy sugar. Honey is really good. Maple syrup is really good. Agave, those sort of things, anything that is naturally sweet. And you can use honey and agave in your cooking recipes or in your coffees or in whatever, just the same as white sugar. You can get, turbinado, that's raw sugar, I think that's raw sugar that is refined and has, because white sugar has the molasses pulled out of it. And raw sugar puts the molasses back into it. So that's why it's sort of like brown sugar. That's why it has that darker color. And raw sugar is a good way to go because it also will assimilate slowly into the body. Let's see. Sugars we like to get from, there's sugar in everything. There's sugar in meat, there's sugar in vegetables, there's sugar in everything. When you're cooking a meat and you get those nice little crunchy bits that are lovely and they taste great, that's caramelized sugar, meat sugar essentially. And that's why it tastes so good. But sugar, I try to eat as healthy, unprocessed sugars as possible. I don't know if you know, but if you were to have honey, local honey is said to have antiseptic qualities, because if you live in an area where the honey is grown and processed and made, then that should also offer you some antiseptic qualities as well. Let's see, I'd like to talk about a couple more things before we wrap up. Eating habits, eating a balanced meal, limiting the amount of sugar that we take in, sugar in all forms, I guess, like baked goods and sweets and candies and pastas, carbohydrates, like I was saying, we have to limit the amount of things that we take in. And I like the word limit rather than avoid, because I think we all love the things that we love and we don't want to live without them. But if we can have them a little bit less or more infrequently or whatever it is for you that works, then that would be good too. The amount of sugars that we take in, we like to limit that. And the types of fats. We're talking a little bit about fats, good fat, bad fat, well, good cholesterol, bad cholesterol. What does all that mean? HDLs, high density lipoproteins. I think this is maybe something that is common these days for people to know. High density lipoproteins are considered to be good fats. These are things that can be absorbed into the body and used for energy rather than for fat. Things that we get our HDLs, are good fat from, like I was saying before, from our olive oils, avocados, from nuts and seeds and whole grains. Certain foods that are good with, like certain seafood, you definitely get a lot of good fat from omega-3s and good fat from seafood. If you're a person who likes seafood, that's great. Salmon and shrimp, white fishes, those kinds of things are really excellent and examples of really, really good, healthy fats. I think, let's see, LDLs is low density lipoproteins, the opposite of, this is something that is going to assimilate into the body a little bit more slowly and not necessarily turn into energy, but maybe just remain as fat. Low density lipoproteins, some examples of bad fat will be red meats, animal fats like, well, red meat, hamburgers, bacon, things that are high in fat, chicken wings, which I love. But those are all examples of bad fats. Just for the high fat stuff is things that you want to not necessarily avoid, but maybe limit a little bit. So let's see. Ultimately, we talked about, cooking a balanced meal, having a nice wide variety of things. Olives and cheeses are great in moderation. Olives are great, and cheese in moderation is great. Cooking a meal that has protein and grain and some vegetables, just super simple but quick, is kind of what we're after. I try to, like I said, just do something sort of quick protein, a quick sort of either pasta or rice or something like that. Couscous, polenta, those are all real nice options. And some vegetables. We try to eat as many vegetables as possible. We eat a lot of fruits, more now than we did before because we have a child in the house. So there's always fruit around, which is really good. So these are all things to have accessible, like fruit on the table is always good. So that you have it accessible and it's in your vision. So let's see, no one has any time to prepare like a balanced, full meal these days. And if you do, then that's great. I try to create full meals on the weekends, something that we can have some leftovers to put into the freezer, or something that we can eat once or twice throughout the course of the week, stews, crock pot dishes, parmesans, if you want to make a pan of eggplant or some chicken parmesan for the week or something like that. It's always good to sort of think ahead, plan ahead a little bit. I was going to try to make a meal here today to wrap things up. I was going to try to sear a pork chop or two, make some rice, and roast some Brussels sprouts. And I think we'll try that. I'll get it together. Well, here is a good example of something I would like to cook. I like to cook throughout the course of the week, something that I think is pretty quick for me to do. And I'm just going to show you how I go through it. I'm going to cook some rice, enough rice for 4 people. I have some basic pork chops, 2 pork chops, and I have some Brussels sprouts. The Brussels sprouts have been washed already. I wash all of my vegetables before we cook them. And what I'm going to do is slowly just walk us through the process a little bit. Okay, the Brussels sprouts. First things I like to do is I like to talk about how to sharpen knives. If people have knives at home, it's one of the things you can let me know in the comments, because I like to do a knife sharpening demonstration for those people who need to know or would like to know. It's a great thing to know, and it's a good thing to have sharp knives. It just makes your life a little bit easier. With the Brussels sprouts, I just like to cut them in half and put them into the bowl. All right, I'll show you that again quickly. I'll take off what I call the roots, take the root off. Okay, and then cut it in half, straight down the middle, like so. Ta-da. And I often will do this on the cutting board rather than in midair like this. But for now, I'm just going to show you like that. And we'll put them into the bowl. I will do this whole thing and come right back to you. I clean the rest of the Brussels sprouts and cut them in half so they are ready to go. I'm going to make 1 cup of rice, which is usually good for 4 people. So I will take a cup measure and pour my rice into the cup. Try to level it off as best as possible. And to 1 cup of rice, I like to add 1 teaspoon of salt. So 1 teaspoon of salt. And everyone, you can do a little bit less if you like, but this is a good amount for me right here and now. Okay, so what I like to do is just mix that up a little bit. I will pour the water right in. And rice is always a 2-to-1 ratio, 2 parts water to 1 part rice. So that's what I did. I did 2 cups of water to 1 cup of rice. I like to stir it just a little bit. I like to cook it like this. A lot of people say it's important to wash your rice before you cook it. Yes, if you want to wash your rice, that's a good way to go as well. A lot of people say wash the rice, rinse it through cold water until the water comes out clear. And that is a great way to help to cook rice and help to keep it from sticking and things like that. But you're also washing away a lot of the nutrients in the starch as you're washing the nutrients, the starch away. So to wash the rice is good idea. It's up to you though, whether or not you want to do that. If you cook the rice like this, I think you'll have pretty good success and it won't stick. So we're going to give it a shot. A lot of people also say during the cooking process, and this is kind of important, don't stir the rice. I just gave it one quick little stir just to incorporate the salt and to mix it throughout the water, but I didn't release any starches or anything like that. I can show you how it looks right now. And I'm going to put it on the stove with medium high heat to bring it to a boil. As soon as it comes to a boil, I'm going to turn it all the way down and just let it simmer for about 15 minutes while it's done. Okay, so that'll be the rice, and I will definitely write this recipe up and give it to you as well. Okay, we're just talking about it right now. The pork chops I like to simply season with salt and pepper. So I will put a sprinkling of salt, and usually when you take a three-fingered pinch of salt, that is about a teaspoon. Okay, so I just do a little bit, not a whole teaspoon. And we like our pepper too, so I do a little bit of salt and pepper. When you do the pepper and you see the coverage of the pepper, it gives you an idea of how much salt you also have on there if you can't see it. It's a little bit of salt and a little bit of pepper. Now this is ready to go as well. And if you can let this sit for a few minutes, it's also great. Let everything absorb and get the salt and pepper right into the meat, and it'll help bring out the flavors as well. So just a little bit of salt and pepper on the pork chop. I'll bring you over to the stove with me. I'll put it into a hot pan, put in some oil, get the oil hot, just a little bit, and then sear one side of the pork chop, turn it over inside the pan, and put the whole thing in the oven to finish it for about 10 minutes or so. And here we also have our Brussels sprouts that I cleaned. And what I like to do with these is to coat them with a little bit of canola oil. Right? That's about a tablespoon, maybe a little bit less. And toss those around. We're going to put these directly on a cookie sheet. Or if you have a roasting pan or something like that at home, then that works great too. So just try to coat everything with oil. And the oil is really just to help facilitate the roasting process. It acts as a medium to give you nice golden brown all over. There you go, all over. So we'll put that on there like that. It's just a little bit for us. Spread it out evenly. Salt on there. I like to put garlic on here too, but I will put it on halfway through the cooking process so that the garlic doesn't burn before the Brussels sprouts are done. Right now, the Brussels sprouts have a thin coating of oil on them, salt, and I'm going to put them into a 400-degree oven for about 15 minutes or so. Okay, so here we have our rice. It's on high heat. I'm going to bring it to a boil, and then I'm going to turn it down to a simmer. I have the lid on it now. I'm going to leave the lid on throughout the cooking process. This pan here is over a high flame. I have a medium-high flame. I let the pan get hot for a few minutes. Got to wait a couple minutes, make sure it's nice and hot. And then I put in the oil, and I'm going to wait until that gets nice and hot as well. And once that is hot, I'm going to add my seasoned pork chops. And it should sizzle. That means that your pan is hot enough. We're going to let this cook for a couple minutes. I like to let it cook so that I can see that the protein is cooking. I can watch it cook about 2/3 up the side of the protein. And when that's ready, 2/3 up the side of the protein, then I like to turn it over and we'll put the whole thing into the oven. So I will be back in just a moment. Okay, here we are. We're back. The pork chop has been searing for about 4 actual minutes. I've had it on one side for about 4 actual minutes. And you can see it's cooked about 2/3 of the way up the side of the protein. I don't know if you can see that or not, but that tells me that it's time to turn over. And we have nice caramelization on top. Again, these are meat sugar that has been caramelized and is delicious. Okay, so now I am going to take this whole pan, turn the heat off, and put the whole pan in with the Brussels sprouts, 400-degree oven, and they will all finish together. At the same time, the rice is coming to a boil, and that will cook in about 10 minutes, 15 minutes as well. All right, so I will come back to you again in 1 minute. We are back, everybody, and it has been about, let's see, it's been 20 minutes exactly, and our rice is done. And let's see, our Brussels sprouts are done, and our pork chops are done. Let's see, I do have instant read thermometers that I use at home. These are a really good tool for helping to determine doneness in meat. It tells you what the temperature is. I like to put it in at a little bit of a degree of an angle and then see what that reads. How do we know when the rice is done? Well, a good way is to check and see, can you see all those chimneys, the steam holes in there? As soon as you get all those steam holes, that's when you know that your rice is done. So now we have some rice, some Brussels sprouts, and this pork chop is at 172 degrees, which is pretty well done. So that's nice and well done. What I like to do with the Brussels sprouts now is I will put them into my bowl and toss them with a little bit of olive oil. So let's see, we've cooked our meal. We have our seared pork chops that we finished in the oven, 400-degree oven. We have 1 cup of rice that we cooked with 2 cups of water and a teaspoon of salt. Some Brussels sprouts that we had coated with olive oil and roasted into a 400-degree oven. And let's see how it looks. Here are our seared finished pork chops, and they came out pretty nice. It looks, we will cut them open and see. Chefs will tell you one of the most important things that you can do with your pork chops or your meat after you're done cooking it is allow it to rest. Chefs love to allow their meat to rest for a little bit. It allows the juices to flow back into the meat so that when you cut it, the juices just don't flow all over the plate. So it keeps your meat nice and moist and stuff like that. Okay, so here's our rice, and it looks pretty fluffy, not too bad. I could have cooked it for another minute or so, but I think it was pretty good. The pork chops, let's see how they look on the inside. See how well those are cooked. And that was 170 degrees, and for me, that's pretty well done. Yes, that's pretty well done, but it looks good. And then our Brussels sprouts, and just a little bit of olive oil, just to coat, and that's it. Toss them around, and they're great. Okay, and that's full of flavor. Nice roasted Brussels sprouts, some good steamy rice, and just some simple pork chop. Real nice. And what I'd like you all to do now is to let me know what you think about this this meal in particular, this style of cooking. If it seems like it's not interesting enough, not flavorful enough, let me know. We can talk about that. I'm just looking for your opinions, basically, on what you think about this style of cooking, this particular meal. And I also want to know what you're doing at home. So let me know what you're cooking at home. Maybe write some comments or let me know while we're in class and in discussion. I will see you in a little bit, and we will meet in person via Zoom, and we can talk about all this together. Okay, very good. Thank you. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.